Hey, yeah, this is Retroburn, and today we have a Warhammer 40K storage solutions video, specifically how to protect your Warhammer 40K manual. So this is the Kill Team core manual, and today I'm going to teach you how to cover it with plastics so that you won't have like a horrible experience like the corners being bent and start and fraying like this one here. Also, so you won't have dents forming up on the book. So what you need to have is, of course, one Warhammer manual, of course, um, a glue, white glue. I think this is PVA. I'm not too sure. This is PVA, right? Elmer's. A pair of scissors. You don't need a craft knife. A small scissors would also be helpful, and of course, a roll of plastic. So first off, what you're going to do is toughen up the corners of this one because in the covering process you might end up bending them. So what I usually do, my mother taught me this. I mean, my mother taught me how to cover books, but this is one trick I've learned. I've been covering books since what? I was 13, so that was in, I don't know, 1990, 1989. I think I was still 12 years old then. And yeah, one of the few things I've remember fondly covering was Richard Knack's Legend of Yuma. What I usually do is I separate these corners here and put some glue in them. This is optional, but if you do this, it's going to make your corners stiffer. So pro tip, when you cover your books, don't drag them across the table because that's going to scratch the surface of the cardboard. I'm very obsessive compulsive about that. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind. And then after you've separated the corners, you just some thin line on your finger right there, and then just line this up here. There you go. Don't worry about being messy about this because PVA dries as clear solid, so yeah, don't get too OC about covering it with a lot of PVA stuff, with a lot of the glue. Just be careful that you don't end up what do you call this, like this one here, much glue there. Just be careful that you don't end up gluing the cover and the first page together. So you have to wipe any excess the page the edges. There, sorry about that. My bad. I know I've said that don't worry about having too much glue, but that was a sad extreme. Just enough to cover the edges and just wipe away the excess. Don't worry about the excess glue right there because that's going to dry as a clear solid anyways. No problem there. Okay, with that done, I'm going to wipe the excess glue off my finger. With that done, you just put the nozzle here in the corner. Make sure you coat everything in there with your PVA. There you go. Put a sizable glob in there. So you ensure that you soak the material. And once this dries, it's going to form a very stiff corner, so you won't have to worry about your corners fraying over time. There you go, just give it a little squeeze. And then it's just like honing your paintbrush. Oh, too much glue right there. Sorry about that. So when I cover my books, when I stiffen the edges like this, I'm not this is sloppy. It's just that I'm viewing this through my smartphone, so I'm working at a very odd angle right here. So the extra fiber strands that the book will, if there are fiber strands speaking out, you just stamp them into shape. So I think I used too much. Be careful about this. Before it dries, you can just scratch these off. It's too much. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, you see the point. It's starting to get gluey, so it's going to form protective screen that's of course tougher than paper. And anyway, if there's excess, you can just do it like this one. It comes off easy. This is my first time experiencing this. That's it's showing as an opaque film right there. Because the other books I have were made of, they're just paperback with no shiny plastic covering like this one. That's one thing that's an oversight. Is that what you call it? I haven't thought about this. The thing forming an opaque film over this shiny thing that Games Workshop has placed over their books. But with paperback ones, the film doesn't show. I think you have to be careful with this one that you don't end up putting glue in there, because you've just seen what happened. So my bad right there. So anyway, I'll do better with this one, with this corner right here. Just a tiny bit, and then just wipe it in your direction. There you go. There are extra fiber strands peeking out, so you just stamp them into shape. It's like honing a paintbrush, honing it into a tip. So this is going to toughen up the corners of your book. And then you do the same thing for the other side, of course. Oh, so this is just this got damaged in transit. So I don't know what happened there with Games Workshop. But no biggie. I may be obsessive compulsive about this, but I'm not that obsessive compulsive about damaged corners. Just that, yeah, it's one of the first things I've noticed. Yeah, you can see my unboxing video where I noticed this. Place it on the description box below if you want to see it. I opened up a $165 Games Workshop package. That was my first Games Workshop package that I ordered, because I figured that anything less than 130 is going to be a waste, because you end up giving Games Workshop $17 just for the shipping alone. So I've made it a point that every time I'll order from GDW, I'm going to order $130 worth of merchandise or more, just so I can save up. Because $17 is maybe a small sum for some of you guys, but it's not a laughing matter for me. I mean, it's just a waste. You can buy food for that. Think of the starving children in some places of the world. $17 can go a long way for those people. Oh man, there's a sheet of plastic. There's a bit of plastic that has folded back. Let's repair this one. Just hold this and hope that, yeah, okay, awesome. So the wetter the corner, the stiffer it becomes when it's dry. Wait, that sounded wrong. But yeah, the more glue you put in there, when it dries, the more durable it becomes. So with really frayed edges, you have to put more glue. Just oh, what? I'm tempted to put super glue in this one. Ah, such a stubborn corner. Wait, I'm going to yeah press it this for a couple of seconds. Go. But the damage still can be seen, but we can't do anything about that. That happened in transit. There. And wiping it off towards your direction so that you won't end up smearing glue all over the inside of the leaf. We'll just hold this for a couple of seconds just like the other corner. Okay, there you go. Nice, clean. So we'll just wait for maybe a minute so this can dry. But first we have to wipe off this excess glue right here. And then we'll wait for a minute or so. Okay, so I think it's ready. But some of the glue are... Man, this is the first time I've experienced this. Maybe it's because of the plastic sheet. But yeah, if you feel the edge, you can feel that it's more solid now. It's more rigid. So once it dries, you have solid corners right there. Time to put the plastic. Now this is going to be tricky because I'm working in a very small table and I have two lights. One here and one here. I don't think this is even 4 feet of table. So this is a very cramped area. So forgive me if the tripod shakes. I mean the monopod shakes. You have to buy a more solid monopod sometime in the future. So what you're going to do is what I usually do is find the corner. Man, I think I'm going to do a terrible job at this one because of the very small table, and I'm very anxious that I'm going to... So anyway, what you usually do is find the corner. I don't know if you can see this. There you go. And then if there's like this one, this is scotch tape right here. So this is kind of dirty. That has smear marks because of the adhesive of the scotch tape. We're not going to include that. So you just draw. You put some distance between your book and the edge of the plastic, maybe an inch, and then an inch here. And then what you're going to do is to make sure that everything is flat. What you're going to do is get a pair of scissors, and then as much as possible, you cut and then you drag the scissors all across there, hoping to get a straight line. So if you have a better technique on how to do this, share it. Maybe you can put a ruler in there and then trace it with your craft knife. That's doable too. But I just usually do this. I'm not too obsessive compulsive about having a slightly crooked line. But yeah, I do try. But yeah, let's see how this goes. Then, but what you're going to do is hold both edges right here. Then you just drag the scissors all the way there, and then you estimate that that's going to be uh same distance from this one, the bottom part, and the other one here. So you'll have at least a uniform edge. And then once that's done, I'm going to change. I'm going to all fully this piece of plastic. There you go. Then after that, make sure that the oh, I skipped this step. Sorry about this. But you have to take note that there's no debris feel around. If there's pieces of if there's lint. So I don't know if you guys are interested in this one, but I figured that hey, maybe some of you are cozy as I am about Warhammer 40K storage solutions, protecting your manuals, that kind of stuff. So what you do, this is another one of those tricky steps. Now, once you fold this, where's my other? So this is my use for the small one. Once you do this, you open the book, and then turn to the last page. Now you have to make sure that everything is aligned, because if you shift, that's going to, what do you call this? If you misalign this, you're going to have crooked edges. So make sure that you press down. So if you move your book, the plastic sheet moves with it. So you don't end up having a misaligned cover. What you're going to do is you fold and then you go here. Make sure that this is the last. This is the cover page, and then wait, have I? Is this equidistant? Is this uniform? You know, I should have gone for 2 inches instead of just roughly 1. But anyway, yeah, this will do. So the larger the book, the more distance you have to put between this page and the edge of the plastic, because that's going to act as your. It's going to be the, what do you call this? The grabber of sorts. Sorry about that. Badly phrased again, I know. Grabber of sorts in the book, and then once you do this, just fold. I know I've said that this is one of the tricky steps, but I'm going to show you how tricky that's going to be once I finish with this one. So what you're going to do is you just this here, and then you just make sure that it's the very edge. One of the things that I'm very obsessive compulsive about is that if you fold the plastic sheet and there's an excess there, like right here, if you do that and then you fold, there's going to be an extra millimeter of plastic that's not flush with the book's edge. So that's no in my book, no pun intended. So yep, you have to make sure that you pull and then you do this. But when you pull, make sure that the book doesn't curl with your hand, because if you do, that's going to mess up the entire project, because you're going to make the piece of plastic very constricting. That's going to warp the covers of your book. So be careful, be very careful about that, because if you end up doing that, you will have to redo this step. And it's not difficult, but yeah, it's going to be a major bummer if you do that, because over time, if you do a very constricting cover, it's going to make your book curl away. The front cover and the back will curl away because of the insufficient plastic, because it's hugging too tight. So that's going to damage your book, so be careful about this one. And then you set it right here. And then very carefully, you flip this over. There you go. And then remember what I said about do not create a very constricting plastic cover. So once the rear thing is covered, make sure not to. Yeah, you can pull this one so that everything is flush with the book. But be very very careful not to pull it too much, because like I've said, if you pull too much, this is going to all the plastic is going to go there, and it's going to make that constricting plastic sheet that I've warned you about, and it's going to make your back cover curl away from the tome. It's going to do this over time, and that's going to damage your book. So just be very careful about this. So just pull with just enough force that everything is flush with the book, like it's flat, but don't overdo it. So that's what you do, and then you open this one to make sure everything is flat right there, and then very careful about this. You just bend a bit, because if you do this, that's going to, yeah, the constricting thing, that's going to be an issue again. Make sure it's flat. Then you do this one. So this is also partly why I put PVA on the edges of my book, because that's going to protect the fibers when I, because this is kind of very, no, it's not very, it's still a, it's not a very punishing process, but it is kind of, because you're going to, this is metal, and that's just plastic and papers. If you, when you do this, the extra durability will come in handy and not damaging your, but yeah, it's just going to flatten the edges of the book. No worries right there. Yeah, be very careful. Push down, and then you push down here in the spine, and then you do it like this. But don't, be careful not to crease the pages, of course. Then you unfurl the stubborn section there, and make sure you go ahead and, uh, how do you phrase this? I'm not a native English speaker, so sometimes I fumble for words. You put your hand here, and then you do this, because if your hand is right here, and if you crease the plastic there, maybe chances are that extra millimeter thing that's going to stick out, that's going to happen. So make sure that every time you crease the plastic with a pair of scissors, your hand is just across the pair of scissors right there. Of course, you can use other instruments, but I find that the metal handles of small scissors are, I don't know, more convenient for me. But of course, if you can find more, useful tools in doing this one, good. Do so. So after this, I'm going to tape the thing. Give me a sec, because I can find the scotch tape. So just be careful not to get your fingerprints all over the scotch tape. And then once you do this, get here, and then make sure that the sheet is flush with the front cover right there. You just basically pull. So by this time around, even if you pull so much, you're not going to risk pulling the entire sheet here and causing this to curl outward from the volume, because of this guide you've already made with a pair of small scissors. So the crease here will act as a guide. So that's just going to be all the plastic allowance, all the slack. Not going to consume more. And just, whoa. Place that. It's there. So another tip, if you can get a scotch tape that's not as strong, because the only um the only thing that you're using this for is to, of course, fasten the plastic, but not so much that in the years to come, when you need to replace the plastic because it gets scratched or damaged, when you remove this, it's not going to take a piece of the cover with it. So that's one thing to keep in mind too, if you're covering books. And then do the same for the next cover. I mean, for the rear one. So what you do is, of course, get this. But maybe I think I'm doing it wrong. Maybe it's just, wait. I think it's better if you just, instead of using this to cut, maybe you could just, wait, cut this one right here with the scissors so you won't get your fingerprints all over the thing. There you go. Cleaner this way. That's one thing I've learned today. Getting off the lint. And then pulling again so everything is flush with each other. There you go. And then you don't have to make this perfect. But not like that. Ah, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. It's really bad. Oh man, I introduced a crease. Would have been really, really bad. So just make sure that you don't introduce a crease. That's going to form a bump. Oh man, we're running out of scotch tape. Great. Great. So I'm in the middle of a video and I'm running out of scotch tape. We'll just use small pieces. One thing I haven't considered that I'm running out of scotch tape. Here you go, small pieces right there. Shouldn't have wasted all those strips. But anyway, yeah, we'll cover this ugly stain right here. Then make sure everything is pressed down, and then man, not perfect at all, but yeah. But anyway, it's good that I'm making mistakes so you guys will see what not to do. Then after this you can even rub a drop of alcohol in there, and that's going to get rid of the adhesive of the scotch tape. But just be careful not to get the alcohol here, because that's going to destroy the ink on the covers. So once you do this, the front page and the back is now secure. And if you inspect this one, this is perfectly made cover, because it's not curling away. So you know you're doing things wrong if you've created a very constricting plastic that it pulls the front and the back cover away from the book. Inspect it here. So it's not doing that. So this is a nicely done cover. Good thing. And then after this, you just the crease there, that's going to be your guide. And then you just cut here. You know, a piece of trivia. I haven't done this since what, 1993? I haven't covered a book in like ages. Then you cut here. And then afterwards, you know, I shouldn't have cut all the way there. That's going to expose a bit of the page. So this is a mistake right here. In the next corner, we're going to do better. And then after this, you cut a diagonal line from this one to the corner of the book. But make sure that there's a little extra, but not so much. Here you go. And then do the same for when connecting the spine. So make sure that you know where okay, so it's flush right there in the corner, so that's not a problem. But if the thing is glued here, yeah, you cut till here. But this is nicely done book cover by Games Workshop. So just cut right here down to that point where you can't have any more spare page, because that's glued right there. And then after that, do the same for this page. I mean this cover right here, but taking care not to make the same mistake we did in the front. There you go. And cutting the extra bits. My mother taught me this. Thank you, Mom. Ages ago. Here you go. So far, my family has been very supportive of my first foray into the world of Warhammer. So maybe this is the only time I'll say this, as cheesy as it might sound. Thank you, fam. There you go. Okay. And then after, so we have the same, roughly the same angle. So that's why I transitioned from the front cover to the back, just so I can get everything as uniform as possible. You don't have to do this, but I'm very obsessive compulsive this manner, this regard. So what you do again is fold and then just make sure there's no lint. There's one right there. Why doesn't it come off? It's on the, I think it's on the opposite side. There you go. And then what do you call this? Yeah. This is going to be a very awkward angle for me because yeah, if I were to do this, I'd be turning the book all around here, but there you go. It's a nice angle right here. And then again with the metallic scissor thing trick, you pull again, make sure everything is flush against each other. But make sure that okay, so yeah, so there's a piece of plastic there that's going against this one, so you have to cut. That's another thing that you have to keep in mind. You have to cut this one. It's a second. There you go. Then after that, now we can, yep, there you go. Parfait. Is that how you say perfect in French? So be careful about very heavy books, because if you're, if you're working along the edge of your table, and if this goes there, you might inadvertently damage your book. Maybe even ripping a few of the pages. But man, I should have unfold this, but alone up here. Up, oops. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So anyway, just pull. Then once you do, pull scissors trick. So make sure that everything is flush against each other. So the thing with metallic instruments that they use for creasing is that it's going to make a very, very tight crease. The plastic is going to, what do you call this, for the lack of a better term, obey where you want it to fold, as opposed to using softer materials like, the rubber handle of other scissors. Once you do that, like your handiwork, and then go here. Don't place adhesive on it yet. Make sure it's flush against each other before you commit, and then place adhesive on, I mean scotch tape on the flaps. Again, with a scissor stick, just be careful not to rip this part here. There you go. And then you inspect your handiwork before committing. Perfect. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so once you do this, you can just cut this here. If you want, you can put some distance, but yeah, it won't really matter. And if you put as just a couple of, maybe a millimeter or so, it's going to protect the spine. But if you place too much excess, that's going to, it's going to be tricky storing it, because you might. But yeah, I think anyway, if you store it like this, put it in your bookshelf, the plastic is going to fold anyway. So yep, that's not going to be a problem at all. Then after this, we're going to, yep, small, because I'm running out of scotch tape. We're just going to get a very small piece just for each flap. Never mind the fingerprints now, because we're conserving material. But if you have lots of scotch tape, like I've said, the bigger the book, the longer pieces of scotch tape you need to hold everything together. But the thing with short Scotch tape is you're going to introduce, the smear marks from your fingertips. But that can't be helped right now because I'm running out of Scotch tape. So, yep. But if you have, yeah, lots of them, you can do once you pull again. You pull again because even if with this crease right here, the crease that you've made with the metallic scissors, if you're not going to be very careful, you might end up fastening this one while it's bent like this. So that's going to be a nightmare. You just make sure everything is flush against each other, and then you do this. There you go. And if you have a longer piece of Scotch tape, you can just cut off the part where you have your fingernail. I mean your fingerprints on it. So this is not perfectly done. It's misaligned, but anyway, not that important. Then do the same thing, of course, for the other end. Again, conserving material right here. Going to get a very short tab. But yeah, there's also, if you want, you can also make do with very small pieces of Scotch tape because in the years ahead, if this gets very scratched, you might want to replace the plastic cover. But with shorter Scotch tape, you're going to minimize the damage that you're going to do the cover once you rip this out. And you can even make do without these because if you, for example, with heavy books, the weight of the book is going to make the plastic conform to it. Like the weight of this book is pressing down on this one. So given time, you're not going to need adhesive, but yeah, but just make sure that you do this for the cover. But this one is not really that important, so you might want to try that option. But with me, I want everything what do you go, flush against each other. That's why I always put Scotch tapes on pieces of Scotch tape on everything. After this, do this too for the other sides. So I'm going to cut it short right here and then proceed after I've finished everything because what I'm going to do on this side is exactly the same on the other. So that's going to save you guys time. So again, inspect your handiwork before committing. I think there's a millimeter or so of extra plastic on the top edge. We're going to have to pull further. Okay, is that fixed? Yeah, it is perfect. This one right here, I don't think it is. Pulling further. And then pressing down harder with the scissors. There you go, right there. And then we need 4, but we're running out. We're definitely running out. There we go. It's like we're working with a doomsday bomb. If I end up wasting one of these babies, I'll have to wait for tomorrow for the shops to open. There you go. Shaky fingers. It's going to be a nightmare painting minis with these hands. Yeah, next up, I'm definitely going to do videos on me painting Warhammer 40K miniatures. Oh wait, we've already covered everything? I mean, fastened, so I think we need a larger piece. The last one. Yep, have to reject this. Sorry, Mother Nature. Such a wasteful person. So this isn't less than an ideal thing, but with the circumstance we have. So all in all, this has been a very good job. even with me working at a very odd angle, seeing things through my phone. But yep, this is one cover job that I'm very proud of. It's not perfect, but yep, this is good. So all you have to do is after this, if you want, so it's not exactly there. There are mini creases all over the page. If you want to flatten everything, you can just put, I don't know, put heavier books on this one. So over time it will flatten, like maybe those hardbound Dungeons and Dragons rules manuals, rule books. That is, yeah. And then yeah, it should. The plastic should then be flush with the kill team. So there's a mistake I made. There's a piece of lint right there. Where is it? There you go. So be very careful about this, guys. Before you do anything, make sure that your table is clean and there's no lints anywhere. But yeah, all in all, this has been a very good book covering job right here. So this has been a Warhammer 40K storage solutions video specifically on covering and protecting your Warhammer 40K rulebooks and core manuals. So if you like this video and would really like to see more of this kind, please like, share, and or subscribe. So subscribing at this point is very important because I only have 45 subscribers at this point. Yep, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button to get notifications. Would help me greatly. So yep, this has been Retroburn, and you've just seen my Warhammer 40K storage solutions video. So stay cool, guys. Stay frosty.